What up, you guys? Welcome back to Feral Publications YouTube channel. As always, it's me, Rich, your anti-fascist comic book nerd, curating comics for your enjoyment as well as empowerment. And we're still looking through book 1 of MAUS, called A Survivor's Tale, My Father Bleeds History, and we are on chapter 5 called Mouse Holes. And before we begin the chapter, just trigger warning, because this chapter talks about suicide as well as the death and murders of children. And so let's begin, you guys. Book 1 of MAUS, chapter 5, Mouse Holes. This chapter begins with Art Spiegelman at home with his girl. His wife's father calls him because the father's on the roof, can't do it. He's very elderly, his heart's giving out on him. Nonetheless, he wants to fix the roof. He wants to fix it and he can't. And so he asks Artie, can you come over here and help me? Right? He tells him, when I was young, I could do by myself these things, but now, darling, I needed your help for the drain pipe. Art Spiegelman flakes on his dad. A week later, early afternoon, and he shows up, and his dad, he's fixing his things, and he's kind of disgruntled and upset at Art Spiegelman. We don't really know why. But Mala, who's Vladek's wife, tells him, my son reads comic books, and he came across a comic book that you did, and he shared it with me, and I had it in my personal things, and your father came across it. And it's a comic book that Art Spiegelman did about his mother's suicide, and it's called Prisoner on the Hell Planet, A Case History. And there's an actual image of Art Spiegelman's mother and himself. And this is obviously heavy and dark for a lot of reasons. Some of it is that he talks about his father's grief, talks about how he did not feel comfortable with his father's grief and ultimately didn't know how to console him, and how Art Spiegelman was just released from a mental health institute and was staying with his parents, and that he felt that he had been cold and distant to his mother prior to what occurred. And ultimately the argument that he makes in that comic is that his mother basically committed the perfect crime. You put me here, shorted all my circuits, cut my nerve endings, and crossed my wires. You murdered me, mommy, and you left me here to take the rap. Ultimately, that he's become a prisoner of guilt and shame, and there's no way for him to get out of that guilt and shame, is ultimately how I understood this comic. But yes, his father read it, and he says, it's good you got outside your system, but for me it brought in my mind so much memories of Anja. And then there's a spat between him and Mala, because it's not easy, because Vladek really loved Anja. And this chapter kind of emphasizes why he loved her so much and how close they were. And so then, Vladek tells Art, hey, go with me to the bank real quick, I want to take care of something. And so they start walking. As they walk, Vladek continues the story. And like I said, it's a really dark topic, but he starts talking about, ultimately, every day the guards marches about an hour and a half to work. And every night they marched us back, counted us, and locked us in. And these are the Jewish Gestapos, right? So the Jewish folks that are working in tangent with the Nazi Germans. And in this section, basically, someone shows up and he's part of the Jewish council in a different ghetto. And he tells them, hey, this situation here in your guys' ghetto is really bad. I would love to take the children with me to protect them and to keep them safe. And so for a while, they argue again, and they don't want to do this. But it sounds more and more like just a smart thing to do to protect the children. You see, I wanted to send Rechieve someplace safe a year ago with Zaleki's child. Things are even worse now, Vladek. We have no choice. No, we must all stay together. We've made it this far. God will still help us. Matka, be realistic. Anja's mother didn't like to look at the facts, but finally even she agreed. And what ends up happening later is they round up all the children and kill them. And this section here is really heavy, guys. It says, most they took were kids, some only 2 or 3 years. Some kids were screaming and screaming. They couldn't stop. So the Germans swung them by the legs against the wall, and they never anymore screamed. In this way, the Germans treated the little ones, but still had survived a little. So really rough, man. And so then Art Spiegelman says, so what happened to Retrieve? Our beautiful boy, we only found out much later. A few months after we sent Retrieve to Zarnowitz, the Germans decided they would finish out that ghetto. More gunshots. What's going on? It's horrible, Tosha. All the Gestapo in the ghetto have been replaced by others from Opal. They just shot Persis and the rest of the Jewish council. What? They're evacuating Zarwitz. We're all supposed to go to the square with our baggage right away. They're sending all of us out to Auschwitz. Oh my God. No, I won't go to their gas chambers, and my children won't go to their gas chambers. Bibi, Lonia, Retrieve, come here quickly. Always Tosha carried around her neck some poison. She killed not only herself, but also the 3 children. I'm telling you, it was a tragedy among tragedies. He was such a happy, beautiful boy. But it continues, and the reason why Art Spiegelman is a really good storyteller is because he began it with his father wanting to continue to build and to fix things and to have a hands-on the things that were going on in his house. And in this, you start realizing that his father felt very proud and felt very capable because he built things to survive. And losing that must have been very traumatic for him. You don't survive like the whole shit that he survived and then feel less capable and feel happy. Because there's even a section in this chapter where he tells them, you should do this because you never know, just in case. And it's like, still to that day, his father thought any day they could round us up and kill us. And that's a horrible thought to always have in your mind. But he basically explains this bunker that he built for his family and how it protected them and saved them as they began to hunt the Jews down, because they started to liquidate all, and this is how Vladek refers to it, right? They start to liquidate all the ghettos and all the Jewish folks in there. And so then they start, building bunker after bunker to just kind of survive. And this part is fucked up, right? Because they bump into another Jew who's looking for food, because not only are they hiding, but they have to come out to scrimmage for food. And so he ends up happening upon their bunker, and he tells them, my wife and I have a starving baby. I was out hunting for scraps. And then Vladek's father-in-law says he's lying. He may be an informer. The safest thing would be to kill him. What had we to do? We took on him pity. In the morning, we gave a little food to him and left him to go to his family. Jude and Ross, the Gestapo came that afternoon. So they were in fact correct. That homeboy was an informant. And there, you see again how much the money plays a part, right? He says, he sees his cousin on the floor on the street, and his cousin's part of the Gestapo Jewish arm, right? He's like, I made signs to show I could pay. Some gold I hid in the chimney of our bunker when they took us, but a few valuables I still have with me. And once he sees that, right, he's like, okay, don't worry, Haskell will come help you. Haskell Spiegelman was another cousin. Wouldn't they have helped you even if you couldn't pay? I mean, you were from the same family. Ha, you don't understand. At that time, it wasn't any more families. It was everybody to take care for himself. So the bribes begin, and the father-in-law and mother-in-law do not make it out. They go to Auschwitz, and they do not survive. It says, on Wednesdays the vans came. Anja and I saw her father at the window. He was tearing his hair and crying. He was a millionaire, but even this didn't save his life. Then it continues, and they basically go to this last refuge in the ghetto that they were at, where ultimately they're basically, fixing German shoes and boots and stuff. But Vladek is part of the hand crew that is digging up graves, the mass graves. And there he sees the man who betrayed his family. He's like, well, I buried him. Hey, this is the rat that turned my family over to the Gestapo. The other Jew tells him he was shot. Haskell had arranged he would be killed. That's his cousin. So they do get their revenge as a family on the man that betrayed them. He's like, but if he's dead, why is his eyes still open? He was struggling to survive. It happened I was on the work detail, so I buried him. Here the father has a situation with his heart, takes his heart meds, and then continues. And here goes one of those situations where I talk about how Art Spiegelman's father survived, through luck and through just all these very, very strange and interesting intersections, right? It's like, one time I was in the ghetto walking around. Halt, Jew. Give me your ID papers. I'm going to blow your brains out. Ah, I see you're a member of the illustrious Spiegelman family. Go on your way then, and give Haskell my regards. Such friend Haskell had. I told Haskell and Milak later about this. You were very lucky, Vladek. They call him the shooter. Every day he kills some poor Jew just for fun. And that's just the way they lived and survived. They just always lived on the threat of just murder. So then it continues. This is kind of a funny story. Ultimately, they scrimmage a bunch of sugar and flour, and they bake a cake, and they eat cake. And what you end up finding is some of the flour Persh found, it wasn't really flour, only laundry soap, what he put in the cake by mistake. We were, all of us, sick like dogs. So they're still trying to find ways of surviving and living as dignified as they could. But things start to get worse, and they eventually, right, by the end of 1943, the vans went every Wednesday with more and more people from Sordua to Auschwitz until there was very few left. It could be our turn soon, eh, Vladek? Let's hope not, Milak. Haskell heard that any day now they intend to deport everyone that's still left here. Milak took me to the shoe shop. It was early and nobody was there. He moved a few shoes from a pile high into the ceiling. Don't tell anyone about this except Anja and your nephew. A tunnel made from shoes. We came out to a bunker. Everything was ready here, so 15 or 16 people could hide. The nephew doesn't want to go with them, and Anja's heartbroken over it. This is very, very sweet, right? He says, no, darling, to die is easy, but you have to struggle for life. Until the last moment, we must struggle together. I need you. And you'll see that together we'll survive. This I always told her. The ghetto finished out, so like Milak said, about 12 from us ran into his bunker with him, his wife and his 3-year-old baby boy. It was nothing to do all day but to lie and to starve. All around were guards to find any who remained hiding. It says after a time, Prish came over to us from his bunker. I've contacted one of the guards. It'll cost a fortune, but he's agreed to look the other way. Our group will mix in with the Poles when they walk past Bordula on the way to work tomorrow. If you want to chip in, you can come with us. Many from our bunker said yes. Milak and we said no to this idea. We didn't trust the Germans. The next morning, very early, the group walked out. They gave over the money and went past the guard. I stood secret behind a corner. I heard loud shooting, and I didn't go to see what happened. I only ran very fast back to our bunker. So they killed all of them. You can only do so many slide deals until you can't. Then it says, only a few of us remain. There haven't been any lights on in the guardhouse for 2 nights. I think it's safe. Ahead of time, we organized ourselves good clothes and ID papers. We mixed in with the Poles going to work. We went all in different directions. So they split up, and Art Spiegelman's father Vlad and his mom Anja don't actually have a place to go. So they don't know what they're doing. That's ultimately where this story kind of concludes, and then it goes on to the side story about Vladek making sure that Art Spiegelman has a key to the lockbox, that he has certain treasured things in there. And then he talks about how Mala wants all his money and ultimately wants Art Spiegelman to have nothing. And that's where this chapter concludes, you guys. Again, very hard topics, just showing just the brutality of what occurred, and ultimately how there really are no right decisions, and the decisions you do make you're gonna bear forever. And it's the intersection that I see with that currently is one about not losing the zest to live, and ultimately not necessarily finding silver linings, but ultimately, as they try to take away your dignity, to continue to walk dignified. As they try to take your happiness, to continue to laugh. And as they try to take your livelihood, to continue to live. And that's kind of the intersection that I saw in this chapter. And ultimately, the idea of like always being prepared and always trying your best to be capable, because being more capable just puts you in a better situation. So, I mean, like I said, it's a really heavy, dark chapter. It's probably one of the ones that, you know, really hits me hard in the heart, right? Because you had those 3 murders of the children, Rechieve being one of them, and then the suicide. And, you know, no matter what they decided, those children were going to die. And it's just a horrible chapter in human history, man. But alright, you guys, that's all I got for you guys today, man. As always, thank you so much for watching. Please like, share, subscribe. And I'll be back with the last chapter of book 1 of MAUS sooner than later. Alright, you guys. Lates.